Hi, and welcome to today's episode of the Property Pod. My name's Libby, and I'm here today with Lloyd from our employment department. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much.
And he is just going to talk to us a bit about his own sort of route into the firm and career progression with the firm and the different routes that there are with Attwells to become a lawyer. So welcome to the podcast. Thanks very much for joining me today.
Well, thank you for having me again.
And so Lloyd, tell me a bit about what the different routes are to becoming a lawyer at Attwells.
I think the two main ones, you have the more traditional route, which is a route that I did, whereby you'll go to college, you'll go to university, you'll do your legal practice course, and then you'll leave after you've done your legal practice course and hope to find a training contract somewhere. You'll do a training contract, maximum of about 2 years, and then you'll qualify as a solicitor. The route that is now probably less traditional but is sort of up and coming and more people are doing it is the apprenticeship route. It's probably the route that now, if I was in college, it would probably be the route that I would explore. Reason being is that with an apprenticeship you sort of learn while you earn. There's not a huge degree of difference in terms of the timescales it can take you to get there. You don't have to pay the huge tuition fees that come now with going to university. And as part of the apprenticeship that we offer at Attwells, we cover all your training costs as well. So you're in a working environment, you're handling files day to day, you're not paying the tuition fees, and you're also earning a wage at the same time and really getting to know what it's like to work in a law firm day to day.
Great. And what opportunities are there for career progression at the firm?
I think there's lots of opportunities for career progression. I mean, a good example of that is that there's 6 partners at Attwells, including myself, and over half of those partners, including myself, started off in administrative positions, and we've now sort of worked our way through the firm. From an admin position to now leading the firm. I think what's also quite important is, and it might be something that gets lost in other firms, is we have developed specific career routes, not just for lawyers, but for also our support staff and our managerial staff, so that we've done it on the basis that wherever you start in our firm, and whether you're a lawyer or you're not a lawyer, you can end up, as long as you work hard and you progress, you can end up being a member of our board, which I think is really important. And it says to people that we don't just talk about career progression, we really do mean it. Yeah,
that's what I was struck with when I first joined, was how many people, I don't have a great degree myself, and I thought it was really inspiring how so many people don't have degrees, but they do it a different way. They go for an apprenticeship, or they start off, like you said, as a support position. So like Emma, who was a receptionist and now she's head of HR, and that's just so inspiring. So I think it's great that we offer that, and we don't just sort of discriminate against whether you have a degree or not.
No, not at all.
No,
not at all.
Great. And a lot of firms talk about career progression but struggle to show it in practice. Can you sort of give me a real life example of career progression?
Yeah, I mean, there's myself, probably, which we're probably going to touch on a little bit more later, but it goes to the fact that the leaders in the firm, the people that do sit on our board, and are members of our partnership, the vast majority of those started out very much in the lowest sort of admin roles in the firm, and they've worked their way through, and the firm supported them with the training, managerial training, legal training, and has supported them to go from what was initially would be considered a junior position to now the position of leading the firm. So I think when other firms sort of talk the talk about career progression, as a firm we sort of walk the walk. We've got a number of different examples of that, where career progression really has meant something.
Definitely, yeah. No, that's great. And what do you think are the benefits for working for Attwells?
I think one of the best benefits I've talked about is the career progression. I think we do very well with our staff in terms of having a work-life balance, which is something that sometimes can get lost. I come across many lawyers at other firms, and there are times when I do have to work very long hours, don't get me wrong. I don't want anyone to be under illusion that doesn't happen. But I'd consider, in comparison to other firms of our size, we do have a better work-life balance. We have a very nice working environment. It's a relaxed working environment. I genuinely feel like our members of staff care about one another. Again, it's not something that we just try and encourage. I think we see it day to day. And it's very much, we're quite strong on culture. And I know, being a junior member of staff, years ago, how well I was supported, and I'd like to think that we still do that now. I mean, we really do promote people from within. We're very much about getting, anyone of any age, but especially young people in, and sort of helping them sort of foster a career with us and progress, you know, whether they stay with us or whether they go on. I think one of the best sort of legacies that we leave behind is that we have a very good reputation for taking junior members of staff and really polishing them until they're like the finished article.
Yeah, there's a lot of people like that within the firm that I can think of, you know, loads of people that have just gone from like very sort of entry level roles to being like so responsible for so many different things, and it's really cool. Very good that we do that. And I mean, we've touched on it before, but could you tell me a bit more about your sort of experience of the company culture at Attwells?
Yeah, again, I mean, I think we've worked a lot on our culture, and I think what you tend to see is a lot of businesses, when they talk about their culture, it's rather aspirational. So they're putting out culture statements about what they want their culture to be rather than what their culture actually is. I think that we're different in the sense that I would genuinely think that we can actually support what we say about our culture. So things such as career progression, you know, supporting one another, helping one another. I know as a partner, and even when I was a junior member of staff, we really do have an open door policy. When I was junior member of staff, at any time I felt I could go and speak to my manager, I could go and speak to any one of the partners, and they would give up time, no matter how busy they were, to try and help me. And that was really important. And I think some of the things we do around every anniversary, we give staff members an extra day off as holiday. We try to celebrate members of staff if they have passed exams. We reward it internally. If people have qualified, we take them out for dinner. We do a lot of social events with staff. I think that really is our culture in action.
Yeah, it's really nice. Like at my old workplace, it was a nice place to work, but it wasn't on like the level of, you know, you would stay later to like, there wasn't even, not because you would want to stay later, but it's just because there was like this expectation and pressure for you to like stay an hour later, and if you went at 5 on the dot, it's like, oh, what are you doing? So it's nice that everyone's just like, oh, let's all leave at the same time together. You know, on the top floor, we all just like wait for each other and then walk out, and it's all very nice. So yeah, definitely. And how did you get into the legal profession, and sort of what made you choose Attwells when you started working?
I mean, in terms of how I got into the profession, I always liked law, but probably the thing that struck me the most and probably led to where I've ended up was my dad in the 90s was unfairly dismissed when he was an employee. He was an electrician.
Yeah.
And he himself brought an employment tribunal claim and was successful. And that was no sort of mean feat for an electrician who had no knowledge of the legal system at all. And that sort of inspired me, made me interested in employment law. And then when I carried on and did my studies in university, I actually got to study employment law. And I just found that I was really good at it. I really enjoyed it. I'm very much the sort of person that if I'm interested in something, I'll really engage with it. And if I'm not, it's quite the opposite.
Me too.
I've really got to like what I'm doing to put like 110% into anything. And in terms of Attwells, probably what struck me in the first instance was how friendly it was. And something that impressed me and probably does get a bit lost on some people is that when I had my first interview, I had it with Nick, the managing partner.
Oh, okay.
And he talked to me a lot about the culture and about what Attwells was about. And I felt like he was genuinely interested in me and not just my studying, but what I did outside of work. And that sort of struck me that he cared enough to come and undertake a first interview with an admin assistant because he wanted it. He wanted to find someone that was the right fit and fitted in with the culture that we had as well. So I thought that spoke volumes really about the sort of firm that we were.
Yeah, and, nice,
it was a good decision, hopefully.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Maybe not after this episode. But yeah, oh no, nice. I do think as well, from when I first started, what struck me was as a law firm, like I was in travel before and I'm not really a sort of straight-laced type of person, I don't think. And I thought when I came to Attwells, I don't want to work for lawyers. Like, they're so boring. You know, all these typical from like another, no offence, sort of perspective. You think, oh, it's a bit intimidating, and there's this man in a big wig and a cape type
Everyone's
thing.
going to walk around with quill pens and tilby hats.
Yeah, like Hogwarts type vibes. And I was like, oh God. But actually, you come into the firm, everyone's so sociable and like friendly, and it's just a really nice environment to work in. And like everyone on my floor is really nice and friendly. And I don't know, it's just completely the opposite. So yeah, I'm glad.
I think every profession and every environment has sort of stereotypes that go with it. But I'd like to think, like you said, in your experience, when people do come in, it's a very different sort of vibe to what people would expect, and I was the same. I had an impression in my mind about what it was going to be like to work at a law firm, and I was really pleasantly surprised when I did come in. So
yeah, it's very nice. And so tell me a bit about your sort of personal career path.
I mean, I would say that I was brought up very much with a hard work ethic, and that's what sort of drew me to Attwells and why I've stayed here, because I've always been of the impression that if you work hard, you're going to get somewhere, and I've always felt that, and that's something that's luckily has carried me through. I've always been very hard working, and also I've been like a problem solver. I've always been good at solving problems. I started off at school, went to Sixth Form College, studied law at Sixth Form College. I enjoyed that. I then went on to university, but I thought, I don't want to do law. I don't know why. I went and did sports science for a year. That lasted 3 months before I then come out of university. So these journeys are never smooth.
Yeah.
And then I went and worked on a building site for 9 months to try and earn some money before I then went back to study in law at an undergraduate at the University of Essex. So being on a building site in January when it's freezing cold, that definitely made me think this is probably not what I wanted to do. And my dad always wanted to try and steer me away from it wherever possible. So I then went back to university, did my law degree at Essex, finished there after 3 years, and then went and did my LPC legal practice course at Anglia Ruskin University in Chelmsford. And then after that, I applied to Attwells and I got a job as an admin assistant. And I think probably something that's quite an important message is, as people probably know from these podcasts, I do employment law now and I head up my own department. But when I first come to Attwells, I came to do conveyancing. I've never been a big fan of property law.
No.
Conveyancing wasn't for me. But I knew that it was a foot in the door. And if I got my foot in the door of a law firm, even if it was in a position that wasn't an ideal fit at the time, as long as I got my head down and I worked really hard, I knew that I could get somewhere. And so that's probably a message that's quite important to me that I do say when I go out and do talks to college students, university students, is if there is a position out there, even if it's not perfect, because the perfect one's unlikely to ever come along, just get your foot in the door of a law firm, get that experience, because any experience, even a bad experience, will set you out over and above other people, because now getting your foot and actually getting real life experience in a law firm is so important, because more than ever there's an expectation now that when you come into a law firm you have to hit the ground running. You know, people don't have time to spend 6 months for you not really doing a lot. They want you to try and hit the ground running. So that's probably one bit of advice I would give that I always found sort of useful.
Just start somewhere rather than just
anywhere,
that's not perfect.
Just to get some experience, any work experience you can get, go and sit in magistrates' courts or employment tribunals, see advocacy in action, anything like that is really valuable. Yeah,
and of course we do have a work experience programme as well, so that's always a good thing. So even if you're not at the level of like apprenticeship or lawyer, if you're not sure and you're at school, you could go, actually work experience program.
And I did the same thing. I did work experience when I was 15 at a law firm, and that is again something that sort of set me on my way to deciding that that's what I want to do. So I would encourage it to anyone to get an experience of any kind.
100%, just get stuck in.
That's it.
And how did you set up the employment department?
I remember it. That was a while ago now. I remember I was doing conveyancing at the time. I was hoping for a breakthrough. We had a very small employment law department at the time, and I remember sort of trying to get across to the young lady who was doing it at the time how much I liked employment law. I used to stay behind after work to help her to do things, to again just try and show how keen I was to do it. And I remember it being on a Friday afternoon, late one Friday afternoon. I was called into a partners meeting, and I remember thinking, what have I done wrong? Luckily I hadn't done anything wrong. And then I was presented with the opportunity that a member of staff was leaving, and they asked me if I wanted to do some employment work and to move across from conveyancing, which I said, I'm 100%, I can't wait to start. Luckily, within a year, the turnover of that department, I'd contributed towards increasing that by 1,000%, so tenfold essentially the turnover, which probably just for me is not evidencing how great I am, but just saying if I'm really interested in something like I was then, I'll sort of grab it with both hands and take it somewhere. Then got offered a training contract. Then when I qualified as a solicitor, I was heading up that department. So I was in an unbelievable position of being a newly qualified solicitor in charge of a department at a law firm. And sort of the rest has been history. And I've gone from an administrative assistant to a partner of a law firm in 10 years, which again is sort of a real life example of career progression and where we are different, I think, as a firm to what other firms are in terms of giving people that vehicle and giving people opportunities. There's really no limits on what you can do here. If you work hard and you're driven, and there's an opportunity, you can really maximise it here. And we don't put limits on any of our members of staff in terms of setting up their own department and really driving that forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Well, that's been great. Thank you so much. That's
No
a
problem.
wrap for all our questions today. And for all you guys at home, if you did enjoy this episode, please don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.